Welcome to the Belly Button Window channel and episode 29 of the Jimi Hendrix story, like you've never heard it before. In this episode, we deep dive into December 1968, featuring the last concert of the US tour, the various club jams, interviews, photo shoots, as well as the interesting day-to-day details. Stick around, and at the end of the video, we will post some more bonus pictures. Stunning images of 1968 in retrospect. Don't forget to like our videos, subscribe for channel updates, and send us your feedback and comments. Plus, do yourself a favor and check out the extensive catalog of Hendrix books, classic Hendrix recordings on vinyl and t-shirts, available for purchase via the Belly Button Window store. The beginning of December saw the last of the 149 gigs performed by the Experience over the course of 1968, that in addition to producing an accomplished and critically acclaimed double album, Electric Ladyland, the band enjoyed a brief respite until the resumption of touring, scheduled to commence January 8, 1969, in Europe. By the end of 1968, however, there seemed to be a lack of direction in the band. Jimmy was spending more and more time in New York, and obviously wanted to base himself there, and while there was no real friction, excepting for Jimmy's over-self-indulgence in the studio, Jimmy was becoming increasingly moody, to the point where there was a brief falling out. So much so that Hendrix wrote an apology letters to both Mitch and Noel. Sunday, the 1st of December, saw the Jimi Hendrix Experience performing their last gig of the US tour and last performance for 1968 at the COLISEUM, Chicago, Illinois. Concert setlist: Killing Floor, I Don't Live Today, Spanish Castle Magic, Foxy Lady, Red House, Sunshine of Your Love, Voodoo Child Slight Return, Fire, and Purple Haze. A sold-out crowd estimated at 10,000 crammed into the Coliseum on South Wabash Street for the afternoon performance by the Experience, returning to Chicago less than 4 months after their 2 shows at the Auditorium Theater back in August. The concert kicked off on time, a rare 2 p.m. start. Since their last appearance, they swapped Soft Machine for Cat Mother and the All-Night Newsboys as opening act. Unlike the decor and acoustics of the Opera House and Auditorium on his previous stops, Jam Productions moved this visit down to the Coliseum, an old construction with folding chairs on the floor and gymnasium-style bleacher seats around. Hendrix was dressed in high white boots, black pants and a lavender shirt. Noel Redding recalled in his diary, "If only every gig could have that last night feeling, knowing it's over, that there is no plane in the morning, that you don't have to pace yourself in anticipation of tomorrow, inspires one to exhaust that last little bit of energy and throw everything into the set. We did an exceptionally good show." All the ravers came around afterwards, including the Plastercasters, Terry Reid, et al. Critical descriptions of the Chicago Coliseum concert performance highlighted the following. Hendrix chose to open his concert with a cover of Chester Burnett's song, Killing Floor. Note that this rarely performed title will almost always be placed as an opening number, whether it is a concert at the beginning of 1967 or at the end of 1970. The version presented is much longer than the famous Monterey interpretation, nearly 6 minutes compared to 3, and features very good central solo. Jimmy dedicates the second song, I Don't Live Today, to the Black Panthers and American Indians. As is often the case at the end of the tour, the song features a very long solo divided into 2 parts, connected by a noise bridge. Spanish Castle Magic is faithful to the studio version, but the solos extend over several minutes, and the song is performed at the same tempo, without breaks or calm moments for almost 7 minutes. Foxy Lady features an extended intro and interpretation from Mitch. The solo is extended, which is quite rare for Foxy Lady, which is generally fairly faithful to the studio version. Then, armed with his white Gibson SG, Jimmy takes on Red House. He sings in tune and with conviction, and has the blues. The song features some very long inspired solos, with accelerations imposed by Mitch, followed by very calm moments, breaks, wah-wah, a cappella, all coming together with extraordinary fluidity. Jimmy pays a vibrant tribute to Eric Clapton and Cream, Sunshine of Your Love, which succeeds Red House, still on Gibson SG. The song is played instrumentally, which allows Noel to deliver an excellent distorted bass solo, Jimmy contenting himself with playing a muffled rhythm to highlight his bassist. The main riff, then resuming for the end of the song. The only track from the group's new LP, Electric Ladyland, is Voodoo Child Slight Return. Then comes Fire, which is as always quite faithful to the studio version and features Noel on backing vocals. An experience concert almost never ends without Purple Haze, which allows the gig to conclude in style, with good variations during the solo, played partly with the teeth, sliding of the guitar against the microphone stand, and an a cappella finale, also played with teeth. Overall, an excellent show, Jimi encountering no technical or equipment problems, and aside from the presence of Killing Floor, the set list is classic for this end of the US tour. In summary, the set list featured at least one song from each LP, 2 covers and a single. While in terms of the press, the experience is featured in the following newspapers, underground publications and music magazines. World Countdown, December 1968. Edition. Musical, December 1968. Edition. And I Magazine, December 1968 edition, featuring I's first annual rock and roll poll. After completing their tour in Chicago, the experience splintered, with Hendrix remaining in New York and Mitchell and Redding returning to London, where they spend the weeks before Christmas jamming at the Speakeasy and recording at Olympic Studios. So Monday the 2nd of December, Mitch and Noel fly from New York's JFK Airport back to London. And Noel will take the opportunity to record an album with his group Fat Mattress, which includes Jim Leviton and Eric Dillon. Then, Tuesday the 3rd of December, and Noel is also interviewed by Valerie Wilmer for Hit Parader, published in January 1969. Then later, at the Revolution Club. Noel, on guitar, participates in a jam session with Bruce Johnson, bassist of the Beach Boys, and other musicians. While around this period, the experience is featured in the following newspapers and underground publications, and music magazines: Go Set, December 4th, 1968, edition. The Village Voice, December 5th, 1968 edition, which features a concert review of the November 28th Philharmonic Hall gig. And in Italy, Big Ciao, December 6th, 1968 edition. December 6th and 7 sees Fleetwood Mac performing in concert at the Fillmore East in New York City. And so, Saturday the 7th of December, Jimi participates in a jam session at the Scene Club with Fleetwood Mac and possibly Buddy Miles on drums. According to Mick Fleetwood, in a 1997 interview, Jimi was a big fan of Peter Green. When we played together, he took Peter's Gibson Les Paul and turned it upside down like he always did. While Peter Green, in a Guitar Player interview November 1994, recalled, "We hung out together and played quite a bit too. He stopped playing and looked at me. I loved him so much. One day he leaned over so I could touch his hair. It felt all weird, frizzy and squishy, you know. I think it was the first time I touched a black person's hair." Jimi at the 22nd Precinct, Hendrix author John McDermott explains. During December of 1968, precise day unknown, final negotiations for the purchase of the Generations Club had been completed. With Chas Chandler no longer involved, the final acrimonious debate that had shrouded Hendrix's foray into the nightclub business had all but vanished. With the lease secured, the partners, Jeffrey and Hendrix, were 50 on the deal, were eager to move forward. Although they were later to abandon the idea, they initially wanted to serve drinks, which would mean obtaining a liquor license. This required the applicants to provide fingerprints, to which they duly complied. One of their lawyers, Henry Calo, recalled, "The closest precinct was on 22nd Street, so we caught a cab, Hendrix wearing a red outfit with a bandana, Jeffrey dressed in a mod suit and little sunglasses, and me in a Brook Brothers 3-piece suit. We went into the precinct house, and the officers looked up at Hendrix as if he had been arrested. I walked up to the desk and asked them to have my clients fingerprinted. The officer said, 'What do you want to have them fingerprinted for?' I said they wanted to obtain a liquor license, and the state liquor authority has told them to come here, and that we had all the necessary forms." He looked at them and then looked at me and said, "These guys get a liquor license. Do you really think they have the financial ability?" I said, "Yes, I think they do." He looked to me and said sarcastically, "Well, counselor, what makes you so sure?" I said, "Have you ever heard of Jimi Hendrix?" Without looking up, he replied, "Sure. Well, that's him over there." The officer flipped out. "That's Jimi Hendrix. Who's the other guy?" "That's his manager." In exchange for autographs for his kids, I asked if he could get us out quickly, and so 4 cops lined up to help him. They couldn't believe that Jimi Hendrix had walked into their precinct house. From treating him like a semi-bum, he was now a VIP. While across the Atlantic, Saturday the 7th of December and Sunday the 8th of December, Noel records at Olympic Studios with his band Fat Mattress, just 1 year after the Experience had gathered at Olympic to record some of their finest work. Olympic Studio A was now booked, but this time for Noel Redding's band, Fat Mattress. Fat Mattress had received an astounding advance of $150,000 from Polydor Records, based purely on Redding's association with Jimi Hendrix. Made up from friends and associates from England, Fat Mattress carried over many of the demos Redding recorded at the record plant during the Electric Ladyland sessions. The Experience's bassist was committed to Fat Mattress and rallied his new band to complete their debut album. While around this period, the Experience is featured in the following music newspapers and underground publications: Disc and Music Echo, December 7th, 1968 edition, which features articles and top 30 singles, features All Along the Watchtower at number 11, and top 20 LPs features Electric Ladyland at number 4. New Musical Express, December 7th, 1968 edition, which features top 30 singles chart featuring All Along the Watchtower at number 13, and top 15 LPs chart featuring Electric Ladyland at number 4. Rolling Stone, December 7th, 1968 edition, featuring the article titled Tits N Ass LP Brown Bagged in England, referring to Electric Ladyland, and Top Pops, December 7th, 1968 edition, featuring an article and top 30 singles chart features All Along the Watchtower at number 8, and top 10 album chart which features Electric Ladyland at number 2. While the Experience is featured in the following music magazines: Record World, December 7th, 1968, featuring a concert review; Muziek Express from Holland, December 1968 edition; Jazz and Pop, December 1968 edition; and Fabulous 208 from England, December 7th, 1968 edition. Wednesday, the 11th of December, at the BBC Wembley studio in London, Mitch Mitchell joins John Lennon, Yoko Ono, Eric Clapton, The Who, Jethro Tull, Taj Mahal, Marianne Faithfull and other artists for the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, a legendary rock show filmed for television. At the request of the Stones, it will not be broadcast and will remain in the closet until 1996. A short-lived supergroup called the Dirty Mac is formed, with Mitch Mitchell on drums, Keith Richards on bass, Eric Clapton lead guitar and John Lennon vocals and guitar. The Four Stars perform Year Blues from the Beatles' just-released White Double album. While still in London, at the Blaze Club, Noel Redding takes part in a jam session with Henry McCullough, guitarist of Joe Cocker's Grease Band, and the group Heir Apparent. While in mid-December, the Experience is featured in the following music press: Go Set, December 11th, 1968 edition, and The Fifth Estate, December 12th to 25th, 1968 edition. Thursday, the 12th of December. In New York City, Michael Jeffrey signs a deal with Steve Gold and Jerry Goldstein to produce a film about Jimmy's 1969 European tour. Jimmy flies to Los Angeles and attends a Harvey Mandel concert at the Whiskey A Go-Go. While over in London, Noel makes a guest appearance on the BBC Top of the Pops program, where he is briefly interviewed by DJ Jimmy Savile during a live broadcast. This discussion is part of the promotion for All Along the Watchtower, as no Experience promo clips are available at this time. Later, Noel Redding attends a party for the reopening of the Speakeasy Club, which had been closed since May 1968 due to a fire. Friday, the 13th of December. Johnny Winter arrives in New York, while Jimmy also flies from Los Angeles back to New York. Al Cooper invites Jimmy to join him for a session at the Fillmore East in New York. Cooper and Mike Bloomfield are scheduled to perform on December 14th at the Sam and Dave Revue with Earth Opera and others. Jimmy and Jamming, Hendrix authors Harry Shapiro and Caesar Glebeek explain, not all the jams were a success. Howlin' Wolf put Jimmy down badly at the scene. Jimmy was very hurt. Wolf was one of his idols. But this aside, Jimmy was always at his most relaxed out of public spotlight, with nobody expecting him to put on a show. Rick Derringer, then playing with the McCoys, recalls Jimmy coming down to the Scene Club to jam after their set was over. Jimmy was very nice and a true gentleman. A lot of other guitar players would get up and jam with Jimmy. Most of them would take the spotlight and continue playing until somebody said, "Shut up!" Jimmy would always encourage other people to play and jam, but would always wait until the very last before he played his thing. Ted Nugent recalls another jam session at 1 a.m., this time at the Generation Club. Hendrix came walking in, pulled a blue Strat out of the case, plugged it into a fuzz-face fuzz box, and a rolled and tucked custom amp and all by himself, started playing shit that was unbelievable. I was mesmerized, totally in shock. He did this for about 45 minutes, and then B.B. King, Al Cooper, and a bass player joined in. B.B. signaled for me to come up, and we jammed until 6 a.m. It was the most overwhelming excitement that a guitar player could stand. It was an earth-shattering experience. Jimmy expressed his love of jamming to iMagazine. Any chance we have, we jam. That's what playing is all about, when you're creating music with other musicians. That's what you live for. You can't express yourself by jabbering and talking all the time. And half the people don't know how to jam nowadays. They don't play together. They don't really think about the other person. That's what jamming is about. It's playing with everybody. We have a certain little crowd, which is great. We'd like to bring in other jammers, but then after playing a while you feel the flow that goes through the music, and you can follow each other. And finally you get to where jamming, you can be more together than on a record you might have worked on for 2 weeks. Like changes of key and timing and breaks and licks, it can be one of the most beautiful things if you have time to hit it. As we have seen over the course of 1968, Jimmy's favorite haunt was Steve Paul's club The Scene, just up the block from the record plant. Once the scene closed in the early hours of the morning, it reopened in the studio, as blues guitarist Johnny Winter explains. I first met Jimmy at The Scene. We jammed together there a good bit. What we would often do after the club closed is go over to a studio where he had recording time booked regularly and play around with things, maybe play for several hours, and then some other day, listen to the tapes to pick out the good parts to work into songs. Saturday the 14th of December and Sunday the 15th of December. Noel records at Olympic Studios with his band Fat Mattress. Noel recalled, "As I started mixing Mattress material, the studio began to take on the flavor of an experience session. Mitch, photographers, Mickey Waller, Ron Wood, Mick Avery of Birdcage and more appeared, bearing brain changes. I knew how easy it was to let the creative drive collapse into chaos. As these were my sessions and because I had to watch the pennies, I tried hard to maintain control." While mid-December saw the experience featured in the following newspapers and underground publications: Hit Week, December 13th, 1968. Edition, Top Pops, December 14th to 20th, 1968, which featured the Star Poll 68, and Top 30 Singles chart, which featured All Along the Watchtower at number 17, the Top 10 Albums chart, which featured Electric Ladyland at number 3, and the Top 10 R&B Albums chart, which featured Electric Ladyland at number 6. Melody Maker, December 14th, 1968 edition, with the Top 30 Singles chart, which featured All Along the Watchtower at number 19, and the Top 20 Albums chart, which featured Electric Ladyland at number 6. And lastly, New Musical Express, December 14th, 1968 edition, with the Top 30 Singles chart featuring All Along the Watchtower, placed at number 20, and the Top 15 LPs chart where Electric Ladyland sat at number 8. While the experience is featured in Billboard magazine, December 14th, 1968 edition, where Electric Ladyland sat at number 3 on the Top 100 LPs chart, Are You Experienced sat at number 12, and Axis Bold as Love at number 85. Monday the 16th of December. In London, Noel Redding is interviewed by Bob Farmer for Disc and Music Echo, published December 21st, 1968. He explains that recording the Fat Mattress album does him a lot of good. He feels liberated and relaxed because, it's very difficult to work with Jimi Hendrix. In New York City, at the Scene Club, Jimmy is involved in a jam session with Stephen Stills and Johnny Winter, while sometime between the 16th and 31st of December, Deep Purple is in New York City, and during one of these dates, Jimmy jams with Stephen Stills, Buddy Miles, and John Lord on keyboards at the Scene. Tuesday the 17th of December, Noel attends a press reception for the band Era Apparent at the Speakeasy Club in London. Wednesday the 18th of December, back in New York, at the Café A Go-Go, Jimmy jams with the James Cotton Blues Band. Thursday the 19th of December, Noel records with Mitch at Olympic Studios for the Fat Mattress album. And Friday the 20th of December, Noel is invited to a party for the group The Small Faces at the Track Records office. December 20th or 21. On one of these evenings, Jimi plays with the James Cotton Blues Band at the Fillmore East in New York. The band was scheduled to play there on December 20th and 21, opening for Creedence Clearwater Revival and Deep Purple. While around this period, the experience is featured in the following newspapers and underground publications. Hit Week, December 20th, 1968. Disc and Music Echo, December 21st, 1968 edition, with the top 30 singles chart featuring All Along the Watchtower at number 23, and the British Top 20 LPs chart featuring Electric Ladyland at number 8. Top Pops, December 21st to January 3rd, 1969, featuring the Star Poll 68, with the Top 30 singles chart featuring All Along the Watchtower at number 24. The Top 10 albums chart featuring Electric Ladyland at number 10, and the Top 10 R&B albums chart which features Electric Ladyland at number 3. New Musical Express, December 21st, 1968 edition, where the Top 15 LPs chart features Electric Ladyland at number 9, and Melody Maker, December 21st, 1968 edition, where the Top 30 singles chart features All Along the Watchtower at number 24, and the Top 20 albums chart which features Electric Ladyland at number 8. Sunday, the 22nd of December, Noel records at Olympic Studios for the Fat Mattress album with Mitch, Ron Wood, and Mick Avery. Monday, the 23rd of December, at the Speakeasy Club in London, Noel and Mitch participate in a jam session with Eric Clapton. Tuesday, the 24th of December, Jimi attends a poetry evening at St. Mark's Church, the Bowery, New York City. Thursday, the 26th of December, in New York, Jimi falls during a snowstorm on Christmas Day and is taken to hospital for tests after tearing ligaments in his leg, which is reported in Melody Maker and the New Musical Express of January 4th, 1969. As a result, he had to cancel his participation at the Utrecht Pop Festival in Holland, scheduled for December 28, 1968. As it turns out, this story was invented to justify Jimi's long stay in New York. Friday, the 27th of December. In London, John Upsy Downing of Birmingham is hired as road manager for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. While at the Roundhouse, a superstar jam session takes place with Soft Machine, Noel Redding, Steve Howe, Mitch Mitchell, Carl Wayne, Trevor Burton, Jack Bruce, Jim Capaldi, and Dave Mason. Across the Atlantic, Arthur Brown's Crazy World is at the bill at the Fillmore East in New York. It is possible that Jimi jammed with Arthur Brown around these dates at Club The Scene. Saturday, the 28th of December, and the Jimi Hendrix Experience was voted Band of the Year 1968 by the American magazine Billboard. While the album Strange Things, featuring Jimi Hendrix and Curtis Knight, is released on London Records. While around this period, the Experience is featured in the following newspapers and underground publications. The East Village, Other, December 27th, 1968 edition, and the 28th of December editions of Disc and Music Echo, New Musical Express, Melody Maker, Super Love, Record Mirror, Billboard, and Record World, where all three Experience albums achieve Record World Annual and RIA Gold Record status. Jimi, Fashion and Influence, Sharon Lawrence explains. Jimi's influence was being felt culturally across America, not only in music, but also in fashion. The changing Hendrix look was so intriguing and innovative that in 1968, I magazine asked to interview him a second time for a splashy feature title, Private Wardrobes of the Stars, along with such diverse celebrities as Peter Fonda, Liza Minnelli, and Buffy St. Marie. They wanted Jimi very much, Pat Costello remembers, and he was flattered, but insisted that Noel and Mitch be part of the piece. Fashion editor Donna Lawson wrote, "Not since the Beatles have any pop star's clothes and hair been as emulated as Jimi's. He wears chain belts, silver Indian belts, scarves around his waist, paisley shawls, antique brooches, flowered chiffon blouses, and 3 rings at one time." Lawson went on to say of Hendrix, "On a chain around his neck, he wears an oriental green medallion, a gold 3-leaf clover, an elephant hair ring, a centaur archer Sagittarian symbol, Jimi's birth sign, and sometimes a surfer's cross. Girls give them to him, and the memorabilia grows all the time." Blair Sable, the American columnist on hip fashion, was a must-read in New York's Village Voice newspaper in the late 60s and 70s. She remembers, "First of all, Hendrix has incredible taste. Jimi was it. His beautiful headbands, his vest, his pants. In the early days, he wore a lot of oriental fabric that men never wore, and open silk shirts and gorgeous kimonos. He was an absolute trendsetter. Other guys were walking around in bell-bottoms, and Jimi wore cut velvet and the fabulous Moroccan stuff. Even his guitar strap was a work of art. Stella and Colette had this funny little shop in the East Village, and they really decked him out. In 1968, as in the year prior, days off for the experience were as rare as perfect pearls. Pat Costello recalls, even with his crazy schedule, Jimi was almost always cooperative about doing press interviews and photo sessions. He was one of the few people I've met in the music business who didn't go through a prima donna phase. While around this period, the experience is featured in the following music magazines: the German Pop magazine, December 1968 edition; Beat Instrumental, Pop Rock Music; the French, Rock and Folk, Guitar Player; Hullabaloo, Musical, Miami edition; the Dutch magazine Pop Photo; and Downbeat, December 1968 edition, which also featured the 33rd annual Readers' Poll results. The internal band dynamic, Hendrix authors Shapiro and Glebeek explain, what rampant use of drugs did to the already precarious internal dynamic of the band was to increase moodiness by a number only understood by higher mathematics. It is against this background, common to all touring bands, that the relationship between the members of the experience should be viewed. The three members of the experience were very different characters. Noel was the schoolboy prankster, boyish in looks and outlook, and of the three he probably had the most trouble coming to terms with the adulation. He was certainly more sensitive than Mitch to aggravation on or off stage, and found Jimi's mood swings very hard to handle. Mitch was different again, still a practical joker, but much harder and more self-sufficient, more sanguine than Noel about the ups and downs of life on the road, and far less of a worrier. He was never much into friendships, as far as work was concerned. The quality of the music and being on a good gig was more important than getting on with people all of the time. He was less bothered than Noel about spending time in the studio and more easygoing about the money side of things, which infuriated Noel, who always had to take the lead in challenging what he saw as the unfair division of the spoils. Thus, Jimi was probably closer to Mitch than Noel, although, as Chas Chandler had noted, Noel ended up with a lot of influence over Jimi when the chips were down. At the end of the day, Jimi would take Noel's opinion, I think. If Jimi got pissed, it was always Noel who would calm him down. Jimi and Mitch sometimes found Noel rather hard-going and would deliberately miss flights to avoid traveling with him. Noel thought this was just Jimi and Mitch being cool and not running for flights. From Noel's point of view, there seemed to be a fund of frustrations in being part of the Jimi Hendrix experience, hassling over money, the way the band was billed and publicized, Jimi telling him what to play and not playing his songs, sources of friction which success only served to exacerbate. Letter to a fan. Regardless of what people think about you, just so long as you have your freedom of mind and freedom of speech and thought, don't let nobody turn you on your own thoughts and dreams. I'm very interested in meeting you. I believe I would really love to talk to you for a very long time. You seem very different from the other girls who may write to us. I believe your mind is really and truly together. But don't call yourself stupid anymore in life. This is your life. You must die by yourself, so for heaven's sake, live for yourself and no one else. Love you forever, Jimi Hendrix. That concludes this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we will begin the deep dive into January 1969 of the Hendrix story and the European tour. As promised, we hope you enjoy the following bonus images. With the end of 1968 in Jimi's story, we thought it would be fitting to revisit some of the photographic highlights of the year. Don't forget to subscribe for future content updates. And by the way, if you have any stories or anecdotes to contribute, we would love to hear from you. Until next time.